disabilities, such as extend that require modifications of usual school practices. It includes learning disabilities, communication disorder, emotional and behavioral disorders, physical abilities, and developmental abilities. While inclusive education is a learning environment where children with and without disabilities are taught together as equals. This approach is different from more traditional approaches to the education of the children with disabilities that involve segregating children with disabilities into separate classes or separate schools. The purpose of is addressing and responding to the diversity of needs of all learning cultures and communities, and reducing the inclusion of education and within education. This learning environment that develop the skills and personalities of every learners. The teachers have been developing more effective teaching strategies because of the different characteristics, personalities, and abilities of each learners in this type of learning environment. Special education and inclusive education environment has been working together for the best learning experience of the students. That's all.
Good day, ma'am. Today I will be going to share with you about my speech about special and inclusive education. According to Article 26 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, it proclaims that everyone has a right to education, meaning all of us are entitled to receive an education because it is for all, including those students with or without disabilities. In fact, the school is now developing special and inclusive education that facilitate a holistic approach to meet the needs of students with different backgrounds to provide the most appropriate learning environment and opportunities for them. Special education and inclusive education is designed specifically for students whose educational needs cannot be met in traditional classroom settings. This ensures that students with exceptional abilities can access quality education by providing their individual and unique learning needs. Educating them needs more attention than the usual student, which is understandable due to their condition. Therefore, proper planning in the implementation of this program is needed to achieve success in helping students develop their full potential and become productive members of society. In conclusion, discussing special and inclusive education can be a great help in making people informed about the importance of every individual involved in this learning environment because it gives people an awareness that dealing with students like them should be respected, not discriminated. Hence, we must eradicate the stigma and accept individual flaws and deficiencies. We must overcome the gaps that exist between each other. Let us always remember that no one deserves to be left behind. Therefore, education should be for all, no matter who we are.
Make sure you have a video of yourself. Do not forget them. Kay si Math Major nagdalipat sa sobra ka-excited. Mangita rin ang nagdapad mo. To those who are done, Tamayon and Espada and Tinampunan, please don't leave the meeting. I'm going to have a announcement later. Please tell them to come back. Message them to come back. Kalihog lang. Pabalik ka lang anay ang mga wara. Number 5. Number 5.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Go Michelle. Go Michelle. You're unmute.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Inclusive education. Inclusive education, also called inclusion, is education that includes everyone with non-disabled and disabled people, including those with special educational needs. Inclusive education means different and diverse students learning side by side in the same classroom. It is a teaching special design instruction that addresses the unique needs of the students eligible to receive special education services. It is a practice of educating students in a way that provides accommodation that addresses their individual differences, disabilities, and special needs. Inclusive education and special education provides better opportunities for learning. It helps children to be able to be a part of their community and develop provide role models with opportunities for growth. Special education and general education teacher must have mutual respect and open mind towards the philosophy of inclusion as well as strong administrative support and knowledge of how to meet the needs of students with disabilities. Special education teachers can develop greater understanding of inclusive learning and other progressive teaching methods. Inclusive education and special education both have respect and understanding to every child's special educational needs. Inclusive education and special education is very important to children and students who have special needs. It is their way to make them feel that they are not different from us, to make them feel that they belong to us and they're special. In order for us to improve our inclusive education in our country, we must ensure that educators have training, flexibility, and resources to teach students with diverse needs and learning styles. Empower parents to assert their children's right to education in inclusive settings. If we work together as special educators, social workers, good parents, and students, we will attain an effective and successful education, especially for those who have special needs. We must help each other because we must understand and have long patience for teaching students with special needs. Every one of us are equal in this world. We have the right to live and do what we want freely, especially those people with special needs. Let us support them and help them to grow and improve as an individual. Thank you.
Number 6. Uhilia 1. Uhilia 2. Uhilia 3. Uhilia 4. Uhilia 5. Number 7. Ilyama.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon, ma'am. Um, Inclusive education, on the other hand, is the practice of educating students with disabilities alongside their peers without disabilities. In the same classroom, it all meant for all learners. Inclusive education based on the premise that a student develop learns and developmentally, and therefore the fixed way to teaching and learners cannot ensure successful outcome for all. Inclusive, inclusive education is not just limited to including students with disabilities, but is responsible for ensuring that their needs meet our the mainstream classroom as well. Implementing inclusive education requires flexible curricula that have been designed keeping in mind diverse learners. This is to ensure that multiple pathways are provided to students to reach the same goals of opposed to the traditional and one-size-fits-all methodology. There is evidence that suggests that inclusive education benefits not only learners with disabilities, but those with those without disabilities as well, and help build the capacity of teachers and school systems. Inclusive classroom practice will help students feel more included and part of their peers, thus reducing the extent to which the special educator may be responsible for their learners, while the special education primarily with the special educators, the ones of inclusive education with all teachers, as well as encourages school community, sees collaboration and about special education and general education. Teacher helps understand and meet the diverse needs of students and build the capacity of the educator and creating stronger education system. Thank you, ma'am.
Number 8. Number 8. Kilitar. Number 8. Kilitar. Annalisa, you are there. Go, girl.
Wait. Wait lang, ma'am. Sorry. A pleasant day, ladies and gentlemen. I am Gracia Philippine, BSED Filipino, and today I'm going to shed some light on two concepts that used to be used interchangeably, though interrelated but different in some ways. Special education
Check your audio first.
education that maximizes their potential.
Annalisa. check your
Special education again.
Annalisa, check your audio first. You're having some choppy. Check your audio. Let's go to number 9. Balikan na lang ang araw.
Ay, ma'am.
Number 9.
A pleasant afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Education system in the context of special and inclusive education. The real deal of this education classification in the Philippines. Education is a fundamental right of every person. No one should not be deprived of it, as it was written in the Constitution. However, it introduces the other way around. Education seems to be a luxury for some people under marginalized groups or even learners who need a special teaching effort. Moreover, people who happen to have special needs seem to carry a lot of burden by conflicting and closed education system, putting them an extra hardship in their learning experience, eventually leaving them with no choice but to give everything up, especially their education, the harsh reality of the education system here in the Philippines. On the other hand, people with special conditions shall be entitled to education to learn at their own pace, required by their condition under Special Education or SPED. Thus, the Education Act of 1982 guarantees that all citizens, regardless of gender, age, socioeconomic status, physical and mental conditions of all citizens, regardless social and ethnic origin or political and other affiliations, have equal access to education benefits, notwithstanding the lack of government funds dedicated to improving access to high-quality education for all. The Philippine government has not mobilized the SPED program as a resource institution of unique learners. Meanwhile, the inclusion model, which demonstrates the capacity of regular schools to accommodate children with disability alongside regular students, was the alternative. It has been adapted to ensure that students can keep up with their peers regardless of their mental, physical, emotional, and psychological differences. Considering inclusive education, people involved in the said education classification are only interested in regular schooling. They are not willing to take a chance on upgrading the infrastructure established SPED center to serve their SPED needs. It is unfortunate. Schools are so preoccupied with the needs of those so-called regular students that the needs of persons with disabilities are completely overlooked. The most significant shift in educators' understanding in inclusive education is that they are aware it is a right. However, they have not yet accepted their responsibility for ensuring that their institution uphold equal access to education. They are only more generous to people who are disabled than the general public. In retrospect, for as long as Department of Education does not adhere to its special education concept, teachers will continue to believe that the education of people with disability is not their responsibility. Also, they will only believe that special education is only a concept that resides on the special institution and not in inclusive schools. Constantly, they are not used to teaching kids with unique conditions. They are expend their effort and choose to do the bare minimum teaching. Thank you.
Yes, go.
Okay, ma'am.
Go, go.
If every child matters, every child has the right to a good start in life. If every child matters, every child has the right to be included. And that is so important for children with special needs, according to Cherry Blair. It is with great honor to be with you today, to share with you the importance of special education and inclusive education. Education can do wonders to build confidence in making key decisions in life. According to Bill, Kirk, Amazon, et al., Inclusive education is when all students, regardless of any challenges they may have, are placed in age-appropriate general education classes that are in their own neighborhoods, schools, to service to receive high-quality instructions, interventions, and support that enable them to meet success in the core curriculum. And the special education, defined by Britannica.com, that special education also called special needs education. The education of children who differ socially, mentally, or physically from the average to such an extent that they require modification of usual school practices. Children are excluded from schools where they belong because of disability, but every child has the right to be supported by their parents to send them to school. It is important for every children to be in school in view of the fact that every child has the right for education, no matter what are their physical appearance, learning abilities, or skills. It is a good start for a special child to build and boost their confidence in facing all the trials that they may encounter through the help of education. Thank you.
Absalon. Hindi nyo pagulata kung manaan yung number nyo. Pasunudo na lang ha. Absalon, 1, 2, go. Pasunod na lang tayo. Hindi na pagulata. Ngalawag. Ganit na ko ng simpo.
What comes to your mind when you hear the word special education? We associate special educations like education for PWDs. It is a kind of education of children who differ socially, mentally, or physically from the average of such an extent that they require modifications of usual schools or practice.
Next, Ilyama. Mabalik na karon nag-left. Ilyama, Jeric. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Number 13, Turichante. Number 13.
Yes. Special education is the practice of providing individualized instruction and support to students with disabilities and or learning difficulties. In special education, the student will have a different plan and depending on their needs, abilities, and goals. It is an important aspect of the education system as it gives children with special needs an opportunity to learn and best they can at their own pace and make sure that all the needs of the student having these are met. Special education classrooms affect both the child emotionally and academically in both good ways and bad ways. Special education is about teaching and finding the appropriate ways to teach the students who may need additional help or may not be able to move to traditional classroom. Special education serves children with emotional, behavioral, or cognitive impairments, or with intellectual, hearing, vision, speech, or learning disabilities. On the other hand, inclusive education is the practice of educating students with disabilities alongside their peers without disabilities in the same classroom. Inclusive education is based on the premise that all students develop and learn differently, and therefore one fixed way of teaching and learning cannot ensure successful outcomes of all. Inclusive education is not just limited to students with disabilities, but is responsible for ensuring their needs are met in the mainstream classroom as well. In short, no matter who or what you are, you have the right to study whether it's special education and inclusive education intended for students who need special support. Thank you.
Good afternoon,
Number
everyone.
14, everyone.
Today's education, world children are coming to our schools with different family, racial, ethnic, and religious upbringings. Therefore, special education teachers work with students who have physically, mental, emotional, and learning disabilities. They educate them and help them become more active members of the society.